Unlock your potential today at skillbakery.com.
Now in this one, we'll be covering the core concept that's store, actions, and reducers. So what is a Redux store? We'll be covering that. We'll be creating and configuring a Redux store, describing state changes with actions. We'll be writing action creators, and we'll have our hands-on by implementing simple counter using Redux. So what is a Redux store? The Redux store is the central place that holds the application state. It manages the state and allows components to access and update it through actions. It holds the state of the application. It provides access to the state via getState. It allows updates to the state via dispatch action. It registers listeners via subscribe listener. Now, the first thing that we need to do over here is to install Redux. And for that, we'll be using the Redux toolkit. And the command for that is npm install @redux.js/toolkit react-redux. Once it has been installed, let's clear the screen. And here we'll be now creating a file called store.js. And inside this file, we'll be making use of configure store and create slice by importing it from the Redux.js toolkit that we just installed. So here you can see the configure store and create slice. Now, the next step is to create a slice. Now, a slice is a modern way to create reducers plus actions. So here I can go ahead and create one for us. Creating a counter slice involves specifying name, initial state, and then reducer. So if you see closely over here, it's kind of combining the initial state, the actions, and the reducer directly in this one piece itself. And that's why we are calling it as slice. So the counter slice that we have over here has a name counter, as initial state set to 0 for the count variable. And then we have reducers, which internally also have actions defined. Now the actions are increment and decrement. The beauty of having a slice is that you can extract actions from the slice itself. You don't have to create a separate action file or that kind of thing. So to extract actions from the slice, all you need to do is just write counter slice dot actions, and this is going to give you the action that you have in your slice. So here we have the increment and decrement from the slice itself. And after this, all we need to do is create the store using the Redux toolkit. And for that, we make use of the configure store. So here we have configure store, and then it expects a reducer. We have already created the reducer. So we'll say counter slice dot reducer. And once that's done, all we need to do is export this particular store. Now we have created our store. It's time now to use it in our app.js file. So here in our app.js file, you can see this is the standard default application that we have. So here we'll be first of all importing React useEffect and useState. And then we'll also be importing Redux store. So here we'll be importing the store from the store file that we created. Similarly, we'll be importing the actions as well from the same file. Now, we'll be creating our constant to have a counter over here. So inside the app, we'll have our count set, and it is initialized using the store.getState, which will return the initial state. So here, if you see, the initial state of count is set to 0, and that is what we are initializing the count variable once the application is launched. Then we'll make use of useEffect to subscribe to the store. So here you can see we are now using useEffect. So first time when it will be executed, it is going to show this message initial state, and every time our subscribe event will happen, in that case we'll get this updated state. And here every time that event is happening, we are setting the count with the latest state value of the count variable, and that we are doing by saying store.getState.count. Now once that's done, we can just go ahead and start implementing it in the UI. So here we'll get rid of this whole code that we have. Let's clear this, and here we'll have our Redux counter heading. Count value is shown over here, and let's include buttons which will be used to increment and decrement. So here, if you notice on click, we are calling store.dispatch, and it is telling basically what is happening. So either an action of type increment is happening or an action of type decrement is happening. And when you are dispatching this, it's basically calling this subscribe. And internally, when we are calling this set count store.getState.count, the count is basically being incremented because this increment method that we are calling is happening. So here, if you see, when the increment is happening, it is taking the current state and it is incrementing the count of it by 1. And similarly, if the action is decrement, it is decrementing the count of the state count by 1. Let's save this now and let's run it. So here, you can see the initial state is coming up and that's the initial count value. If I click on increment, you'll see the updated state and it is now showing the count to 1. And again, if I increment it, again, you'll see the updated value of count. And this, if I repeat a couple of times, you can see the values getting updated. Now, if I go and click on decrement, you'll notice the same is happening, but the values are now decrementing. So here, the subscribe is taking that into account. And every time we are calling the set state, behind the scene, the state is getting updated. And then the set count is just updating that particular value and showing it over here when we are printing it in the UI using this count. So in this one, we have basically covered the core concept of Redux, and that primarily includes store, which holds the state and provides methods to access and update it, actions, which are plain objects describing what should happen, and action creators, which are functions that create actions, and reducers, which are functions that update the state based on actions. If you see, using our create slice approach, we have combined them together. Then we have dispatch, which sends an action to the store to update the state. So here we have our dispatch when we are calling this from the button click event. And then finally, we have subscribe, which listens for state changes and runs a callback. If you find the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe.